They warned me about her before I even met her. Avery Langston doesn't do small talk. Someone muttered during my first day at Westbridge Capital. She doesn't smile. She doesn't date employees. Ever. But no one told me what it would feel like to be seen by her the way she looked through people, not at them, like she was sorting your value in real time. When she first walked past my desk, heels tapping like war drums on polished concrete, she didn't say a word, glanced down at me, handed me a folder, and moved on. But even that single glance left something behind, like a spark dancing. Under my skin, I told myself she was just a boss. I was just an assistant. But there was something in the silence between us thick, almost electric. I'd taken the job to pay the rent and maybe climb my way out of debt. I wasn't supposed to care. She was too high up, too powerful, too far out of reach. But every day I saw her, I started noticing things I shouldn't. How she never took cream in her coffee but always added a single sugar packet. How her voice softened slightly when she said thank you only to me. How her gaze sometimes lingered a second too long when she handed back a signed document. There were moments, little moments, where I swore she felt it too. But then she'd snap back into that cool, polished version of herself. And I'd remember where I stood, behind her, beneath her, in her shadow. Still, late nights happened. Sometimes we were the last ones in the office. She'd be in her glass-walled corner room, light glowing from within like a trap, and I'd be pretending not to look every time she stretched or sighed. One Thursday evening, I stayed behind finishing reports she needed by morning. My tie was off, sleeves rolled, brain fried. Around 7:30, she appeared at my desk holding 2 glasses and a half-full bottle of red. "You've earned this," she said simply, handing me a glass. I froze. "You drink?" she added, raising an eyebrow. "Not on the job," I said. "It's after hours," she replied. That was the first moment I started to realize something was shifting. We sat in her officer space, but dim and strangely intimate now. Like the pressure of the day had peeled away some invisible layer. She asked me questions, real ones. Where I was from, if I missed home, what I wanted beyond spreadsheets and emails. I answered, a little clumsily, feeling naked under her stare. She didn't smile often, but that night she did. Not big, not dramatic, just enough to make my heart skip like a scratched record dot, and then, without a word, she stood up, walked to the office door, and locked it. My throat went dry, Avery. I said, cautious, almost afraid to speak. She turned and looked at me in a way she never had before, like all the armor had dropped. "Don't say anything," she murmured. "Just let me." And then she kissed me. It was hungry, urgent, but not messy. She knew what she was doing. My hands found her waist, the curve of her back, tea pressed against me like she'd wanted this for longer than I dared to imagine. And in that moment, everything else, the rules, the risks. The way I'd promised myself I wouldn't fall for someone like her just dissolved. We didn't make it to the couch. We barely made it to the desk. It was frantic and soft, all at tea. Once, like we were trying to make up for lost time, or silence something inside us both. She whispered my name in a way no one ever had, and I responded like I'd been waiting to hear it all my life. When it was over, we sat in the quiet hum of the city lights outside the window. No apologies, no awkwardness, just breath and heat, and her head resting lightly on my shoulder. But deep down, even in that moment, something tugged at me. A doubt, a question. What does this mean now? Because I wasn't just her assistant anymore. And I wasn't sure if that made me lucky. Or doomed. Asterisk. I didn't know how to go back to normal after that night. The office looked the same windows, same worn carpet, same overworked printer, humming near the break room, but everything felt different. I'd walk past her office and feel my pulse race, waiting to catch even a glimpse of her behind the glass. Some mornings, she wouldn't say a word to me. Others, she'd send me a text, short, simple, "Stay late tonight." I'd pretend not to read into it, but every time I got that message, my whole body came alive. I'd wait until the office was mostly empty, then walk into her space like I didn't know what was going to happen, when really it had already taken over every part of me. I didn't just want ached for her. And when the door locked behind me, it was like we stopped pretending. It wasn't just sex. Not to me. I started noticing the way her hands lingered longer on my chest when we were alone. How her voice softened. How she looked at me like I wasn't just her assistant anymore. She'd ask me how I was sleeping. She bought me a new laptop because yours is slow, even though I never once complained. She sent me playlists at midnight. She knew I liked late-night drives. So one evening, she tossed me her keys and said, "Take me somewhere." We didn't even kiss that night, just drove around with the windows down, saying nothing. That silence meant more to me than 100 words ever could. I started believing it was real, that whatever this was, it was becoming something. I knew she was private, guarded. Her world was filled with power suits, poker faces, and cutthroat deals. But with me, I thought she was letting her walls down. I felt like the one person she trusted, and I clung to that belief like it was oxygen. Then came the gala. Westbridge's annual celebration was always a big deal. Black tie, luxury venue, high-profile investors. She asked me to go with her. She didn't phrase it like a date, exactly, but I showed up in a suit with a hope in my chest I couldn't shake. God. And when I saw her, I swear I forgot how to breathe. She wore this deep emerald dress that hugged her body like it had been made just for her. Her hair was swept up, revealing the soft lines of her neck. She looked like everything I'd ever wanted. And for the first part of the night, it felt like we were together. She stood close, touched my wrist once under the table. Her laugh was softer, and when she looked at me, I saw something warm there. But then I saw him, gray suit, slick hair, older, mid-40s maybe. Too confident. He walked up behind her and placed his hand low on her back, like he belonged there. She turned and smiled, really smiled, and leaned in like she'd been waiting to see him. I stood there frozen, watching them talk. She laughed in that exact way she did when I made her coffee too sweet. He brushed her arm. She didn't flinch. I waited until I couldn't anymore. I found her near the bar, surrounded by soft lights and the sound of clinking glasses. "What is he to you?" I asked, trying to sound calm, but I could hear my voice cracking. She blinked at me like I was a stranger. "Don't be dramatic, Liam. You slept with me last night." "Eh? And now it's today," she said. Like that explained everything. Like it didn't mean anything. I stared at her, searching for the woman who had whispered my name like it was a prayer, who'd fallen asleep against my chest more than once. But that woman was gone, replaced by the boss again, controlled, cold, unreachable. "You're upset," she said. "But let's not confuse roles here." "Roles," I repeated, choking on the word. "You work for me." That was the moment I realized what I really was to her. A convenience, an escape, a warm body when the stress got too loud. I wasn't her partner or her equal, I was an outlet. Disposable, replaceable. She reached out then, touched my cheek. Gently, "You're sweet, Liam." But this was never going to be more than what it was. And then she walked away. I stood there in the middle of a room full of people, champagne bubbles rising in tall glasses, soft jazz playing in the background, and I felt completely invisible. My stomach twisted, my hands clenched at my sides. How had I let myself believe her? How had I been so stupid? But more than anything, I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at myself. Because even as she disappeared into the crowd, laughing at something he said, a part of me still wanted her to turn around, still wanted her to say, "I'm sorry, didn't mean it," but she didn't. She never looked back. The first thing I did the next morning was throw out the tie I wore to the gala. I told myself it was symbolic, like I could toss the humiliation away along with the fabric. But the truth is, it still sat in my garbage can for 3 days before I actually took it out to the curb. That's the thing about betrayal, it sticks to you. It whispers to you while you're brushing your teeth. It stares back at you through your reflection while you're tying your shoelaces, pretending you're fine. And Avery Langston didn't just break my heart, she reminded me how small I was. I wasn't her lover. I wasn't even a fling. I was an employee who got too close to the flame and got exactly what he deserved. At least, that's what she made me feel. But what she didn't realize, what she never saw in me, was what I had tucked under all that quiet. I may have played the role of the good assistant, but I wasn't stupid. I knew everything about her habits, her moods, her secrets. I had access to the things she assumed no one else noticed. And suddenly I didn't want to forget how I wanted to undo her. It started slowly. I kept showing up to work, same. As always, same coffee order, same polite good morning, same mask. She acted like nothing had happened between us, like I was a phase she'd outgrown. It burned, but I let her believe it, because while she went back to her high-rise rhythms, I began digging. I had access to her calendar, her emails, her files. I didn't even need password sides, set up most of the systems myself. I knew where she stored backup drives, which notes she scribbled down after hours, and what she did to hide anything that crossed a line. It didn't take long to find it. A single transaction buried in a dummy company name, funneled into a tech startup led by a woman named Claire Langston, her sister. It was subtle, sloppy even, something someone else might have missed. I saw it for what it was, illegal, a breach of internal ethics, definitely, and depending on how the board interpreted it, it's possibly fraud. I sat with the information for 3 days. 3 days of wrestling with guilt, with the memory of her lips on mine, with the ache I still felt whenever she walked past. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized she never once apologized. Not for using me, not for discarding. Me, she'd lied with such practiced ease, and I was done being her shadow. So I compiled the evidence, screenshots, copies, timelines. I used a burner email, routed through a VPN, and sent it all anonymously to the internal compliance team and a board member I knew took ethics seriously. And then I waited. At first, everything at work felt the same. Same meetings, same posturing. Avery carried herself like usual, flawless, in control. But about a week later, I noticed a flicker, a meeting on her calendar with legal. Another day, an executive she'd never liked suddenly wouldn't meet her eyes. A tension began to build, quiet at first, but unmistakable. By the second week, whispers had started. People wondering why the CFO was asking about archived reports. Why compliance had pulled 3 years of audit logs. Then came the email, effective immediately. Ms. Avery Langston will be taking a temporary leave of absence pending a review of internal processes. The office buzzed like a beehive cracked open. Some were shocked, some pretended not to be, but no one really knew what had happened, except me. She called me that night. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. My voice was cold when I picked up, Avery. There was a long silence. Then, it was you, wasn't it? What was me? Don't play stupid. Her voice cracked, just slightly. I trusted you. I laughed, but there was no humor. In it, you used me. You made me think I mattered, and then you tossed me aside like I was beneath you. She was quiet again. I almost ended the call. I didn't know how to be with someone like you, she said, voice small now. You saw through me, Liam. That scared the hell out of me. You should have said that, I muttered, instead of humiliating me. I never meant to hurt you, but she had. And the damage was done. Whatever was left between us wasn't love, it was ash. The next day, she cleared out her office. No fanfare, no goodbye emails, just silence. I watched from my desk as she walked past without looking back. For the first time since I started working there, she looked human, not powerful, not untouchable. Just small. Part of me expected to feel triumphant, like I'd won something. But all I felt was empty. Because I didn't just lose I lost the part of myself that still believed in her. That soft, stupid part that thought love could grow in an office filled with glass and power play still. I didn't regret it. Not one bit. She taught me something I'll never forget. If someone shows you who they are behind locked doors, believe them. Time has a cruel way of dragging things out when you want to forget. Every hallway, every stupid elevator ding, every untouched mug in the break room reminded me of her, of us, or what I thought was us. After she left, things quieted. The office ran smoother, in some ways fewer secrets. Less tension, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. I went through the motions meetings, deadlines, polite laughs with coworkers who suddenly looked at me like I might be next in line for her throne. But I didn't want power. I didn't even want revenge anymore. Just wanted peace. And maybe a way to understand how I'd fallen so hard for someone who saw me as nothing more than convenient. But there was still a piece of her lodged in me like glass. And no matter how much I tried to pull it out, it kept bleeding. Weeks passed, then months. Her name stopped coming up in meetings. Her empty office was quietly reassigned. Someone new moved in, a guy who wore bad cologne and smiled too much. I avoided that side of the building altogether. I told myself I was fine. I dated casually. I went to the gym. I even stopped checking her social media. But I still woke up at 3 a.m. sometimes, wondering if she ever thought about me. Wondering if she regretted any of it. And then one rainy afternoon, she walked into the cafe I was sitting in. No warning, no pretense. Just a sudden shadow across my table. I looked up, and for a moment I honestly thought I was dreaming. Her hair was longer. She looked tired, thinner maybe. But those eyes, sharp and unreadable, still knocked the breath out of me. "Hi," she said. I just stared. "What are you doing here? I heard you come here sometimes." That alone made my heart stutter. She'd been looking. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked. I paused, then shook my head. I didn't know why. Maybe I just needed to hear her say something real. She sat across from me, her coat dripping onto the floor. And we were quiet for a long time. "I lost everything," she said finally. "The board didn't press charges, but I'm done in finance. No one will hire me. Even Claire won't return my calls." Didn't say anything. I didn't gloat, just listened. I deserved it. She added, all of it. "You really hear Avery?" She looked me in the eye then, and for once didn't flinch. Because I needed to apologize. Not the way I tried before. "I was a coward. I used you, and I knew I was doing it. But what I didn't expect was to fall for you. And when I did, I panicked. You were the only thing in my life that wasn't about power. You were real, and I didn't know how to handle that." A lump formed in my throat. Then why the guy at the gala? Why humiliate me? She exhaled. "He was part of a deal I was trying to close. I'd led him on for months. I didn't know how to shut it down without blowing the investment. I told myself it was just business, but when I saw your face that night," her voice cracked. I hated myself. "I didn't know what to say. I'm not asking you to forgive me," she continued. "I just needed you to know what we had. It was real. Even if I ruined it, I should have walked away. I should have let that be the end. But there was a part of me buried under all the bitterness that still wanted her to mean it, you know?" I said, voice low. "When you locked that office door, I thought it meant something. I thought it was the start of us." "It was," she whispered. I just didn't know how to hold on to it. The rain kept falling. The world moved outside the cafe like nothing had happened, like we weren't sitting in the ruins of something that almost mattered. I didn't reach for her hand. I didn't make any promises. But I didn't walk away either. We talked for over an hour, about everything, about nothing. Her voice softened the way it used to when no one else was around. I could feel myself slipping again, wanting her. Wanting the version of her that only I ever got to see at one point. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small velvet box. "I bought this for you the week after our first night together," she said, "but I got scared and shoved it in a drawer." I opened it slowly. A simple silver key. "To my place," she said. "Back then, it meant I want you to stay. Now, I guess it means I wish I hadn't let you go." I stared at it, heart racing, not knowing what the hell to do with everything pouring out of her now. "Maybe," she said quietly, "the door was never really locked. Maybe I just didn't know how to open it from the inside." I left the key on the table, not to hurt her, but because I needed time, because I still loved her, but I didn't know if I could trust her again, because some doors once closed. "Don't open the same way again." She nodded like she understood. And before she turned to leave, she whispered, "If you ever want to knock, I'll be waiting." And for the first time since the beginning, she walked away without shutting the door behind her.